Hello, 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 hello. Hello, Craig.
How are we doing, James?
I'm very well, thank you very much. It is Monday night, which is the first time I've got that right. I think last time I said I tried every night of the week, didn't I, till I got it right. It is actually Monday night tonight, which means we are here for That's Class, our weekly conversation about politics, culture, the news, everything and anything that's going on from the perspective of two wee lads from the northeast of England. Craig, kick us off by telling us how you've been this past week.
Where do I start, James? Where do I start? Actually, do you know what it is? Before I even get into that, before I even get into those pleasantries, we've got a bit of a congratulations in order. We've got huge news in the That Class ecosystem, right? 3 months in, pretty much on the nose. 3 months of Monday nights, delivering 15 episodes of the highest quality content you can imagine. But guess what, James? We've just hit 100 subscribers on YouTube.
Oh,
which, listen, so I want to start this, right? And it might not seem a lot to some people, but let me tell you, every single one of those subscribers hold a place very, very deep in our hearts, and they're very much appreciated, are they not, James?
Absolutely, Craig, because each person who takes the time to listen to what we have to say, firstly, probably needs the head checking, but secondly, we're incredibly grateful for that fact, because we do this every week, and we started it with the idea of building a community from the ground up who want to hear kind of a no-nonsense approach to politics, very much through the lens of our backgrounds, which are fairly unique when it comes to politics, Craig, even though we both work around the kind of political worlds. It's kind of unique take and a unique background, but I'm so pleased that's resonated with so many people, and indeed a global audience as well. We know that out of that 100, at least, I'm making up statistics here, but I'm going to say at least 20% of them are from around the world, from America, from the United States of America to John in Tibet. We have somebody in Paraguay. We've got absolute, kind of show favorites in Portugal, and of course all the way to the Costa del Amble on the Northumbrian coast there, where we have viewers as well.
Well, technically, actually, you can throw Torremolinos into that mix as well, because that's where my parents have been, and I've got to say they're probably up there with the very, very tippity top of regular listeners, I would say.
I was going to say jet setting around the globe.
It's thoroughly deserved, but no. So I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you to everybody listening, because I tell you what, right? It's a tough old world, the podcast game. Let me tell you, and we're putting it in, week out. And I'm enjoying it. I know you're enjoying it, James. And it's just nice to see people are coming back. People are listening in. We've got people on Spotify, people on YouTube, and people on Instagram now as well, which is really, really nice. So, yeah, it's all go, man. It's all go. Well, it's going to be onwards and upwards from here as well, James.
I think it is. I've got to add to that. I've got to add these another set of congratulations that are in order, Craig, because little birdie told me that you've been off on your travels. You've been riding the Success Railway down south to the heart of southern England, Manchester, and I don't know, some people would take umbrage with me saying that, but it's not the true north. But you've been going south, and you've had, and we're going to talk about that in this episode. But I must say, from a That's Class co-host perspective, I'm immensely proud of you and the work you've been doing on your socials. Your socials have been going absolutely wild. People are loving the content that you produce, but even to the point where political parties and future prime ministers are taking notice of this. And you've been down to see one such person this week. Is that correct?
Sorry, I thought you were calling me a future prime minister for a second there, James. I was thinking, well, we'll have to say, I don't know how I would survive living in London. You know what I mean? It'll be a tough one down in number 10. I'm used to it detached. What can I say?
It's grotty house prices in the north. I've been in Downing Street, and it's not the nice. And that cat, look, I love cats, I must say. But Larry, he's 21 years old and he stinks. So, until he's out of there, I wouldn't consider the job, mate, if I were you.
And I would be concerned about the time I would have to dedicate to the 100 subscribers, So anyway, but no, you're right. You're right, James. There was and it's obviously the title of the podcast. It was very interesting to go down to Makerfield. So it's like Southern Wigan, basically. So it's like in between Liverpool and Manchester. So yeah, that was a nice trip. But we've got other bits and pieces we're going to cover tonight as well, haven't we? I mean, there's quite a bit going on. You actually said, there's like a bit of a quiet news week, but when you look, actually, we've got quite a bit to get onto. There was obviously like a lot going on. Was it early? I mean, our podcast last week, James, was titled something about where is Nigel Farage? Has he gone missing? We hadn't seen him for a couple of weeks. He surfaced just in the nick of time. And what's interesting, James, and we'll get on to it in a little while, but he was waiting for an opportunity to move on from the £5 million donation that everyone wanted to talk about. And in that episode last week, worth listening, go back and give it a listen, we said he will just be biding his time until some news, some bigger news comes around the corner. And with the case of Henry Nowak, the trial was complete, I think, and the sentences were given. That was obviously in the news. There was a lot of backlash off the back of that. Like I said, we'll get into, but just interesting on reflecting off our podcast last week. That he did surface. But is there anything else we're going to cover tonight, James?
Yeah, I think so. I think we'll get on Henry Nowak in a bit. I know we could definitely spiral with that, so maybe we'll leave that towards a bit further into the episode. Things we can glaze over quickly, which I think it's important that we cover, but we can't dedicate a huge amount of time to this, sadly. Also, it feels a bit like Groundhog Day talking about Iran. I think people just look at the news, they see the words Iran, they see the words Israel, they see the words Lebanon, they think, what's going on? What on earth is happening now? Nobody seems to know. The Strait of Hormuz is still blocked. 1 minute it is, 1 minute it isn't. 1 minute there's a negotiation going on with Trump and a peace deal, then there isn't. So the place we sit at the moment is that essentially hostilities flared up again overnight, and Iran and Israel have exchanged fire. I'm not going to get into who started it or whatever. It's propaganda from both sides at the moment that you're hearing all over the place. But basically, America, Donald Trump seems to be on a pattern of losing his temper over the past 48 hours with everybody and everyone. And he has said that they need to stop firing at each other. Apparently, he's called Netanyahu fucking crazy on a phone call. And essentially, everything is kind of focused on this rocket that landed in Israel that didn't explode. That's all the front pages tomorrow. It's a very striking image. That's why it looks like a cartoon. It's a rocket in the ground, unexploded, with people standing around it. So again, it just shows that hostilities have flared up. There isn't a solution to this. Oil prices, energy prices continue to go through the roof. We are where we have been for many, many months now, basically. And amongst all that, you would think that Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of State, well, he was the Secretary of Defense, now renamed the Secretary of War in America. Pete, who likes spending his time kind of touring army bases and doing chin-ups with the boys, he has decided, rather than focusing his attention on what is an ongoing hostility, an ongoing war in the Middle East, that he would instead go to a D-Day commemoration, right? Important to happen. It was, can't remember how many years. Craig, can you take a stab? Is it 80 something? Is it 80?
What was it, 43? 1943?
40, no, I think it
Landons. So what's that?
Oh yeah. June the 6th it was, wasn't it? So a couple of days ago was the anniversary of D-Day. And Pete Hegseth decided to make a speech in which he said that he drew parallels, incredible parallels, it must be said. I don't know how you find these links, between the invasion by us, by Allied forces to liberate Europe from Nazi tyranny, and what he called an invasion of foreign nationals landing on European beaches. This man's not European. He has no connection to Europe. He's American. And he came here to commemorate the war dead by telling us that our countries are being invaded, our beaches are being stormed in a planned invasion by Muslims, and that our civilization in the West and Europe is going to crumble as a result of it. unbelievable, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, James, when he mentioned the Pete Hegseth comment, I actually slipped my mind. I had seen that. And you know what my initial reaction was, right? My initial feeling was, why politicize? Why not just go and pay respect to the people that laid down their lives, paid the ultimate sacrifice in one of the most challenging periods in modern history? Like I said, the sacrifice was monumental. What is that man gaining from striking and using, that sort of? And what's really interesting is because we've seen that recently this week with Nigel Farage, and I don't want to jump straight across to that, but it's really similar in Nigel Farage politicizing the murder of Henry Nowak, despite his family not wanting it to be used as a political pawn. A direct request came from the family: please do not use this to spread further division, hatred. This was not about racism. This was not about Sikhism. This was about knife crime. That's what the family said. And Farage ignored it and used it for his own political gain. We'll get onto that. But with Pete Hegseth, go to Normandy, 1944, by the way. Sorry, I got it right. 6th of June, 1934. Sorry, 1944. I'm getting my dates wrong. And so just go over there, pay respects, do I know he's not the president, but the presidential,
that's what he's meant to do.
Diplomatic, just do the right thing. Why make it about you? Why make it about your political narratives?
Every politician since World War II has done that at everything, from Hiroshima, but the site of Hiroshima, where American presidents have been to all around the world for anniversaries and memorials and all sorts of things. So many dignitaries from different countries have been and said the words, that everyone would agree with, that we should never do that again, and that we should avoid those kind of conflicts, and that the world was, kind of liberated from tyranny. But not for Pete Hegseth. That's not how he sees that. He sees that as an opportunity to try and push his agenda, and indeed President Trump's agenda, which is to tell Europe that it's under attack, and that, it's the same thing they talk about London, about London being a no-go area, about parts of Birmingham being a no-go area. And they're saying this, and then people back home in America believe it. They swallow it up, and they're like, oh yeah, that's what's happening. There's this horrendous invasion of Muslims on beaches of Britain. And it is just fascinating because it couldn't be further from the truth. But the truth is not something Donald Trump really is concerned about, is it? I mean, we just saw I think it's going to come up, and I think it's probably a good segue for us to take. But when we talk about, Trump and the truth, those two things have been kind of at odds with each other for quite some time. And I do believe that this week, unfortunately enough for all of you who thought we'd got away from Donald Trump being in our nonsense of the week, I think it's probably the perfect opportunity for us to play that. Do you think, Craig? We've got our intro
we've got it ready. But just before we move on, James, I just when it comes to D-Day and all of the anniversaries associated with World War II, it's such an obvious opportunity for politicians specifically in a world of division, in a world where people are at each other's throats for a multitude of different reasons, the opportunity to send a message of unity, because everybody agrees. Unless you're really, really on the extremes, right? Which obviously it's an extreme, most people aren't. You agree that what those men did and laid down their lives in, defending, democracy essentially, and defending people's lives, saving people's lives, and stopping the threat of fascism spreading through Europe and taking hold, and eventually the threat to the UK itself. I don't think I've met anybody who doesn't appreciate the sacrifice that was made by those men, right? So why use it as an opportunity to sow division? What are we doing? What is the aim? There's a comment in my Instagram here from Rye saying the US government sees the UK as a plaything and is more than happy to want to divide further. It's what the US is best at. Look at the state of intervention in other countries from the US. And I think he's right. it is at that point now. And just look at foreign intervention in directly in our politics, where you've got a restore government. Oh God, God forbid a restore government. You've got a restore party led by Rupert Lowe, which has been backed by Elon Musk, the richest man in the world.
Yeah.
Like what stake has he possibly got? Like, why does he want to interfere in UK politics? It can't be for any other reason than a selfish reason, you know.
And you've got
he's not a benevolent man.
Yeah, without getting into the conspiracies of it, you've got to remember Elon Musk as well is the man who appeared at the AfD rallies virtually, the neo-Nazi group in Germany, and said that Germans have nothing to be ashamed of, that they should be proud of their past, and that this idea that they should be ashamed of their past is insane. And not to, again, dig that conspiracy further, but just putting facts out there for people to kind of join the dots themselves as they see fit. Elon Musk comes from a family of people who had neo-Nazi connections, in the American Nazi Party, Canadian Nazi Party, and then his dad, who has been a kind of person who supported apartheid in South Africa and has been a monstrous racist himself. So, is it any surprise that these people are back in these movements and that people like Rupert Lowe catch their attention, because they love to see that, especially from what their ideas of Britain and Europe should be, which is a kind of pure white Christian race. That's their idea.
And you know what? When I try and think about who is it who's benefiting from all of these different players and these different parties, and democracy being undermined, and the rise of the potential of authoritarianism, and like just our democracy being eroded essentially, which is what it feels like with the likes of Reform and Restore. It just feels to me like the only person who's really benefiting, and it's the same with the stuff going on in America, the way Donald Trump's behaving, is Vladimir Putin and Russia. Seems to just, for every single time there's division across Europe, especially in NATO, in countries themselves, whether it be the AfD in Germany, in the UK with Reform and Restore, and Donald Trump directly, it just feels like it all just plays directly into Vladimir Putin's hands. I don't see how he's the only person I can see that it just directly is a positive, because it just weakens this whole block. And I feel like people are just taking their eye off the ball a little bit. Maybe I'm feeding into conspiracies a little bit here, but thinking tactically and thinking strategically around superpowers and how things all benefit each other. It just seems like, given especially what's going on in Ukraine, they're pretty happy with how NATO's performing right now,
Exactly. And I think I don't think it's conspiracy, mate. I think you're right. I think when it comes to Putin, it's very interesting how we're now in a political axis where there's people on the conservative side in America who kind of are Putin sympathetic, people like Tucker Carlson, who've broken away from kind of a lot of the MAGA stuff and said, we need to be like Russia are not our enemies, which isn't. I mean, that was the conservative line for the past 70, 80 years, So they've broken away from that. And then people on the left as well. I get people on the left saying to me all the time, what, you shouldn't criticize Russia. They're not an enemy. We have more in common with them, that NATO are causing trouble. So you end up with this anti-NATO rhetoric shared on the left and right ends of the spectrum. It's bizarre. And you just wonder how you're able to do that. And I think it's a very clever strategy by Russia that's been implemented for many years. Russian bots are something people joke about a lot on social media, but they're very real. And you'll see them supporting as many left-wing causes as they will right-wing causes, because if they think it's going to split and divide, and the tactic is divide and conquer at the end of the day. Remember, there was Russian officials who said that their greatest success was getting Donald Trump elected, because necessarily he was directly an asset. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying he works for them, but because of the chaos that it sows internally. So, of course, that's the case. I think if we had a united Western allies at the moment, if you had a strong NATO backing president like Barack Obama or someone like that in power, if you had kind of joint allies who share each other's values in Europe, and you didn't have all of these separatist far-right movements going on, I think there would be a lot clearer support for Ukraine, and I think possibly the war would be over already. So the irony of Donald Trump being the person supposedly he was going to end that conflict, and that conflict's just dragging on, tells you everything you need to know.
James, I made a video, I think it was last week or the week before maybe, just a short on Instagram, and the idea of it was that like facts just don't seem to matter anymore. Because politicians, especially the likes of Donald Trump and Nigel Farage, and especially, you know, when it comes to Tommy Robinson and that sort of end of the scale on X, they can literally just say whatever they want. Let's just take X for an example, right? And we'll move on a little bit. But if someone posts something on X, despite them knowing it's false, it could be, you know, they could caption a video wrong and make it seem like it's something that it's not, or whatever it is. They know it's misinformation. They know it's incorrect. They can post it, leave it up there for 6 hours, 12 hours. And by the time they respond to it being pointed out that it's false, it's already done its damage because people see it, and there's a big chunk of people take it as read and take it as true. And, you know, and so it's working. But they can then look back and go, oh, well, actually, you know, I recognized it and took it down. Well, by then, the damage is done. But the same thing happens, James, and I know you're well aware of this, and a lot of the viewers will be, but the amount of times I'm seeing the Trump playbook, the Nigel Farage playbook of, and this will feed into our nonsense of the week, of just this fake news thing. Like, you can be called out directly by it, you know, a proper journalist, you know, a well-practiced journalist can call out something, and you just need to say, it's fake news, I'm not talking about it. You've seen Nigel Farage do it with Beth Rigby loads. You know, when it comes to, you know, council tax, you can just say, no, we never said we'd lower council tax, despite the evidence being there. There's firm, hard evidence. You can just say, no, we didn't say that. No, we didn't say that. And people are more than happy for these people just to lie. It just doesn't matter anymore. And that, I think, James, is probably a good time for us to just tee up our nonsense of the week. Nonsense of the week. And well, he returns. I think this was actually designed initially to be a home for Donald Trump's nonsense. Hence the intro there for those who are listening. It's a lovely little Donald Trump jig as the video. But we'll roll straight into it. We'll play the video, James. And then we'll just dive into it.
It was rigged. It was a dirty election. And it's happening again right now in California.
Presented evidence.
It's happening right now in California. Right now, it's look at what's happening in California.
To that?
It's
the
4
Republicans
days.
Are doing well in
California. It's no, they're not. They're dropping fast because it's a rigged election. Let me tell you, it's 4 days. And they aren't even close to coming up with it.
You
know why they're doing that? Because they're cheating on the election.
Do you have evidence to support
all I have to do is look. All I have to do is look.
That's not evidence.
And I listen. And I listen to people. And let's see what happens.
But, sir, that's not evidence.
Do you think it's appropriate?
That's how they count the votes in
Do you
California.
think it's appropriate that they have an election and 5 days later they're nowhere close to picking a winner?
State and local officials acknowledge they are slow. They're urging.
No, they're crooked.
They're urging the votes to be counted quickly. That's how they vote in California.
They're crooked, just like you're crooked. Your press is crooked, and Meet the Press is crooked.
To be fair, I'm not crooked, but let's
Really?
Let's
Well,
continue.
you play right into their hands.
Let's continue.
You're either crooked or you're stupid. You play right into their hands with this rap. You know that these elections are rigged. Your network knows that they're rigged. You know that I won an election in a landslide, and I got 94% bad press.
But, Mr. President,
you know why I
got
that? Because you have no credibility.
But you've never presented evidence that it was rigged. Let's keep talking about. I want to talk about Todd.
You have more evidence. There's more evidence than ever presented.
Let's talk
your
about
elections in this country. We're like a third world country.
But, sir,
your elections are crooked, and you're crooked, and Meet the Press is crooked, and so is ABC and CBS and CNN.
But, Mr. President,
you're one-sided crooked networks. All right, let's call it quits because I've had enough. Thank you, darling. Have a good time.
Mr. President, let's please. I traveled all the way to Wisconsin.
I've sat in the rain with you.
I know.
I've sat in the rain with you for an hour, on and off in the rain, and I've given you enough time. You ought to straighten out your press because you know what?
Mr. President,
a country can never be great with a dishonest
Listen,
press.
we traveled all the way to Wisconsin for this interview.
Wow. Well, firstly, I got to say, Craig, what a historical, and I know it happens a lot with Trump, and I know there's all these moments that we see that kind of stand out, but I think that'll be a historical one. I think that'll be one that people look back to, because not only is he just kind of not even bothering to kind of flirt with the truth or try and bring points forward anymore, but his rage, his absolute rage at being questioned, his rage at that, and then the way that he ends it by calling her darling, you know, like in the most patronizing tone, but also from like purely from like a political nerd PR press kind of perspective, the atmosphere of that with they're in a barn, for those of you who aren't able to visually watch, they're in a barn, and I can't remember where he is, but he's Wisconsin, that's where he is. Yes, a big like kind of farmland country, lots of Amish people I think there as well. And you've got this big barn, he's in it, they've got a tractor, they've got straw on the floor, and the rain is pelting down on the roof. And he even says, I've sat here in the rain with you. You're in a barn, you're not getting wet. What's that got to do with anything? So he's just furious that he's given time to this interview. And she is, and let's be honest, not like eviscerating him, not dragging him over the coals, not really doing that. She's just asking for the slightest bit of evidence that the postal voting system, which has existed for like hundreds of years in America, is crooked in California, and that it's somehow a rigged election. So yeah, I think it's one of those moments that will go down in history. Oh, we've lost your sound there, Craig.
When I look at that, James, it just seems so familiar, and I just feel like we're so used to it. I hope it does go down in history. I hope, you know, it is a moment that people remember, but I'm not sure, James. I'm just not sure that like this scratches the surface now, you know? I mean, go back to Zelensky in the Oval Office, you know? That was a huge moment. This, you know, there's a leader of a country who's in the middle of a war, and to publicly humiliate him, does that stick in people's minds, really? Like,
I think so. I think when we look back one day, I think these things will jump out, because there'll be so much to go through. There's so much, you know, content, so much. That whole strategy, especially Trump, is flood the zone. You know, don't forget that. It's about put so much stuff out there that by next week you forget about it. You know, 3 things a day at least at the moment you're trying to keep up with that have happened. And look at us trying to do the same now by picking through these things, by the Hegseth stuff. This is just in the past 48 hours. So, you know, I think one day we'll look back. And I think if you were looking back at that for shock factor, in the rain, in Wisconsin, in a barn, the most powerful man in the world losing his shit and going red in the face, just isn't a dignified look, is it?
Yeah, you can see, like you said, you can see the rage. I know he is getting on, but he looks old. He looks like angry. He looks bitter. I mean, look, whether you like this man or not, you know, whether you're pro-Trump or you're not, you can't look at that. I don't understand how people can look at that behavior and go, yeah, good. I'm glad.
They cheer it on to a lot of people. You know, a lot of people will be cheering that, thinking, yeah, go on, suck it to her, suck it to the fake press. That is a woman with some of the highest journalistic credibility in the world, right? To be at the top of her field, where she is, what she's doing. And there are certain rules to journalism that are important, right? Journalists aren't, yes, there has been schmoozing. Yes, there has been inappropriate relations between press and government for years. That's always happened. In, you know, go back to ancient Rome, that was happening. But a lot of the time, journalists hold themselves credible in ways that this new alternative media that people like Trump prefer simply don't, because it's biased and it's opinion based. You and I wouldn't pretend here tonight to be journalists, would we? And be like, we're bringing journalistic credibility to this, because we're not. We're bringing our opinions on what's happening. But, you know, people who are the genuine journalists who jump through the hoops to try and do this in a kind of non-biased way, people like her, he calls them all out. ABC, CNN, any of them that have any kind of question of his authority. And right now, on the White House website, something I wanted to bring up, you can actually go on the White House website, and I'd recommend anyone does this if they don't believe me. And what you can do is you can see a list of the the press offenders, right? They've put a list up there about the people who you shouldn't listen to, and it's all of the mainstream media.
Wow.
It's all of them. And then, as if that's not bad enough, to the right-hand side, there is a tab with a little survey you can complete where you can submit a tip. And this tip is about anyone anywhere in the United States who is criticizing Donald Trump. You can send that tip in. What are they doing with that information? Where's that going? Anybody who's critical of the government is now being logged somewhere?
James,
I mean, what the fuck?
I am going to the States tomorrow, right? And I am aware of like, I've got all my visas, I've got everything, I'm traveling legally, got my passport. But when you enter the US, they are allowed to make you unlock your phone and check your data and see what you have on social media, everything that you've been doing. And that is because if you're critical of Trump, they can stop you from entering the country. And they say we've got a free speech issue in this country. It's wild. And that's bearing in mind, right? Another thing here, and we're going off on a little bit of a tangent, perhaps. If you are a historian, a real like proud American, you're really into it, you're into history, the legacy, all these different things. How can you look at what Donald Trump is doing to the White House and building a UFC ring on the South Lawn, right, for a UFC event, and there's talk of him leaving it there permanently?
Yeah,
right. He's turned the place into a building site. He's like, it is. I don't understand how people will sit back. Like, imagine Buckingham Palace. It's like, all right, cool. We're gonna have Conor McGregor and I don't know, Max Holloway scrapping on Saturday night out the back of Buckingham Palace. It wouldn't happen because royalist or not, there's a respect there. There's a dignity. There's a certain level of class. You're not going to have an MMA fight. Bearing in mind, over the years, I've been a fan of MMA. I'm a fan of the sport, right? But it's not a place for combat sports. It's not a
place for any kind of sport. If they built a football stadium, you'd feel the same thing. It's so bred in circuses, isn't it? And alongside that, people forget this man is building statues to himself. He's building the Arc de Trump. He's so. By the way, Craig, right, I've got to say this right. I've got to vent this out personally, and I apologize if this is the thing that stops you getting into the USA tomorrow.
God.
But my God, he's fucking tacky, isn't he? Like it's never like an original idea or like he got an architect to come in and be like, oh, we'll blend themes from the nation and from your life and whatever. It's like Arc de Trump. It's like the Vegas where they copy all of the world's attractions. They got like their own Eiffel Tower and their own,
Well, James, wasn't one of his big failures in Atlantic City? Was it not the Taj Mahal?
Yeah,
was it the Taj Mahal? Yeah. The Taj Mahal Casino. And he reenacted the Taj Mahal, and he lost millions. It is just like you say, it's just tacky, isn't it? It's tacky, like gross. There's no originality there whatsoever. But God, yeah. I mean, we could go on about Trump for a long, long time.
Well, we need to. Well, I think in the interest of you getting your visa and getting through security control tomorrow, I think we should probably leave it there for Trump.
Yeah.
And
well, I think we're. Yeah, go on. No. I think we can move on to some domestic things. Obviously, as we've said on the title of the stream, we're rubbing shoulders with the mayor of Greater Manchester, James.
Well,
let me just say that
to call him just that, I think would be. And I know you're pals with him now, and you're on first name terms, and you've left me in the That's Class viewership behind for better. I understand it. Look, you've got to take these chances when they come. I'm very proud of you. But what I would say is this is a man, and it is no hyperbole to say that he could be about to change the country and the world, potentially, with it if he wins this by-election.
Well, I would say so, James. But just before we get into that, I did ask him if he wants to be my co-host on That's Class. It's pending.
Is there a vacancy? I wasn't aware there was a job opening.
He said he might be busy. soon anyway, so you might not be able to take it. So you might be all right, but. And yeah. So don't worry, James. You're safe for now.
Well, if he does that,
but I've got
tell
to be
him that I'm going to be standing for leader of the Labour Party and Prime Minister. If he does that,
a last-minute addition to the Makerfield by-election candidacy.
It's running for the That's Class Party, James.
But
Matthews.
No, listen, the bat signal went up, and they needed a hotshot young content creator to go down and make a bit of content. So
no one better.
Of course, I was going to be interested to go down there, meet Andy Burnham, ask him a few questions. I've put a video. In fact, actually, should I put the video? I've queued up the video that I've made.
Show us the video, because I think if everyone can see that, and then they'll see just how comfortable and how pally you and Mr. Burnham have been getting.
The future co-host of That Class. Here it is. I'm going to roll VT.
In Makerfield with the Mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham. Now there's rumours circulating. Andy, I've heard that you might be wanting to bring a bit of Northern soul into Westminster. Why do you think it's so important to have strong, proud Northern voices like ours being heard in Westminster?
They've been underrepresented for years. They're not there in the heart of the system. I don't think the system down there is set up for us. It kind of looks past us a bit at times and looks down on our accents. And I've lived that. I've experienced that. So, it's about time, isn't it, for a bit of Northern character in the heart of the Whitehall system.
Mate, I've got to say, 2 points. Burnham, very impressive, very relaxed. I'm always impressed by how at ease he is with people. It's kind of, I won't slag off Keir Starmer. I think he's having a hard time at the moment, but it's a strong contrast, isn't it, to how a lot of politicians are. He doesn't seem stiff. He seems relaxed. You, a future presenter, I would say. I can see you on Country File. I can see you on Spring Watch. Chris Packham, our Star of the Week, better watch himself, because you are very at ease, mate, and I thought it was fantastic.
Well, I appreciate that, James. I do appreciate that. It means a lot coming from you, given your you spend a lot of time on the old TV these days.
I'm just pitching to keep my job now. You understand? That's what I'm doing after what you threatened me with.
Listen, I think talking to Spring Watch, talking to Packham, I find myself more Deal or No Deal reboot.
That'd be a good one.
If I could sidekick Mr. Blobby, Noel Edmonds' house. There's a big Noel Edmonds theme running here. Maybe a future star of the week in Mr. Blobby, by the way, because Mr. Blobby is an OG. But no, so the Andy Burnham thing, I've got to be honest, right? So for people listening and watching, that's not normally my thing. I don't normally I make a lot of content really just me out and about, maybe, or at home, whatever. But it's interesting, right? Because you go down there, and it was sort of like a media opportunity. He was making an announcement about business rates. Mm-hmm. I think he wants to basically cut business rates on small shops, hairdressers, pubs, those sorts of things, and get the money from big businesses. That's essentially what it is. So they called this event in a pub. Obviously, business rates, pubs, goes hand in hand. But it's a media opportunity. So, the BBC were there. It's people from the Telegraph, I think ITV. There was I think the majority of the main networks were there, interviewing them and asking them the questions. And then you've got you're throwing me into the mix, which is, I'm out of my depth, really. I'll be honest, in that environment, and but it is. I know maybe not out of my depth, maybe out of my comfort zone. James, is probably the best
totally.
way to put it. Because it's a new sort of environment for me, being around these sorts of people.
Yeah.
And obviously he's tight on time. I only had the time. I had a couple of minutes to get a few questions in. So I practiced, made sure I had my lines. So I didn't really want to have to look at lines off a phone or for content. It doesn't look too good. I think it's different for news reporters where they're behind the camera and they can, they're not in shot, but I was in shot, obviously making the content. So I got a couple of questions in, and I think a big thing for me, James, right? Obviously, we talk about it quite a lot, That Class, we're 2 Northern lads. Mm-hmm. I do think there's an underrepresentation within the heart of Westminster and the heart of politics of Northern voices. There's no doubt there's been some there over the years, some strong voices, but I'm always keen to see those voices amplified where they can be and being in amongst. I'd like to see politics working for the North a bit more. I mean, I don't want to go down the HS2 rabbit hole, but I mean, that was supposed to connect the North to the South. I mean, I don't know where these people think the North is, but
Birmingham. Apparently.
I mean, we can't even get a dual carriageway on the A1, but don't get me started on that, because that's a whole other conversation as well.
Yeah.
But
I do like that message of because he's been asked a few times, what's Burnhamism? What's Burnhamism going to be, right? What's that going to look like? And he keeps pivoting to, I think, what's quite a clever thing to say, which is he's not championing Burnhamism, he's championing Manchesterism. And I think that's quite an interesting concept to be like, actually, we're bringing something that's been developed in the regions, right, in the grim north, and we're bringing it down, and we're going to teach you how to do it in Westminster, and we're going to blow the doors off it. I find it very convincing. How did you, Craig? How did you find his answers? How did you find him? What was it like? Engagement?
So I asked him, there was 2 questions. Well, I actually had 3, but I sort of combined 2. So the first one was the one that you see in there about, Northern representation. And the second one was, it was sort of about the Times released an article about how trade union members, we actually discussed it on the podcast, trade union members are just as likely to vote for reform as what they are for Labour. And I asked him, what do you think needs to be done to change that? On the backdrop of our manufacturing industry struggling and needing investment. How can we win workers back from, industrial communities, back from divisive politics? And it was interesting. We need to reindustrialize Britain was his first response, which I find positive. As an interesting, there's a lot to go into that. I think because when people think of reindustrialization, not industry in general, it means dirty jobs and CO2 and carbon footprint, all those things. But it doesn't mean that right now. I think investment into industry is actually a race to net zero and not away from it. I think the less we invest in it, the more we're going to keep. Anyway.
Yeah. No.
One for another day. So I think it's just important to make that distinction for people who listen to reindustrialization and think, that doesn't sound very good for.
They think industrial revolution, don't they? Think coal, they think steel, they think. But all of these things, a lot of these jobs now becoming automated anyway. So the industry, I guess, is constantly improving. Technology is changing those types of jobs to a degree where that we rarely see coal miners mining coal in the way that they once did now. And I'm not talking about just digging up fossil fuels and all the rest of it, but it seems that the understanding of what industry could look like now versus what it does is quite confused for a lot of people.
Yeah, and I think that the vibe, in terms of it's interesting, right? Because he's campaigning, isn't he? That's like there's some obvious hurdles around campaigning. You need to, he's trying to win votes in certain areas and keep people happy, and so it's interesting to see this journey that he's going on to hopefully become the MP for Makerfield. So, I didn't have the time to go through and ask him all the different questions that I would have liked to ask him. Like I said, I had a few minutes, so I tried to get what I could for what mattered to me, which is stuff around industry and stuff around, Northern representation. But in terms of the vibe, look, I'd have a pint with him. Does
he have charisma, as they say? Charisma. Has he got loads of that?
Well, look, I mean, when someone walks into a pub, right, and everyone's getting up and getting the cameras ready, and he's walking in and goes, "No, there's a pint of Guinness." I think it's difficult not to have an aura because, you're coming in and carrying the weight, but he's, he's not wearing the suit, he's wearing the jeans and the, the jacket and that sort of vibe, and it's a bit more casual. And I asked him a question about music, and it was very basic. It was Morning Glory or Definitely Maybe, 2 Oasis albums for those who don't know. And he was like, Morning Glory. You know what I mean? It was very quick, so it's difficult. It's not like I had a half hour, 45-minute interview with him. It was interesting to see the campaign. It was interesting going through Makerfield itself. And I'll be honest with you, the only signs I seen up were Andy Burnham signs. I didn't see any reform signs. I didn't see. So and just to be clear, I mean, I went through one area of Makerfield. It's pretty big.
Presumably
place.
with the Labour Party who were taking you there as well. So do you think they want to take you to the strongest parts of the constituency, perhaps?
Well, I mean, I know one thing for sure. The pub we went to was class. It had football pitches. It had Giant Connect 4. It was, it knew what it was doing. It was spot on.
Oh.
But no, it felt to me like they were in a very positive place.
Okay.
That I mean, I can't really say much more than that, really. I think the polls are suggesting that. I think Robert Kenyon's performance on question time left a lot of questions to be answered, at least. We could segue on to nonsense of the week. Not nonsense of the week, star of the week shortly, actually. But yeah, I mean, I know he's been in another debate this evening on BBC. The same things being raised around sexism. There's a strange refusal to just apologise. I'm not sure why he can't just apologise for comments that he made a few years ago. I think that would be more honest. But
he would have moved past it by now. He would have moved past it. If he'd said sorry, you'd be able to move past it a bit. And don't get me wrong, people like me and you aren't going to vote for him who know what he is and know that those views haven't changed. It's just a front. It's just a mask to say that it has changed. But the strategy of not apologising has definitely been advised to him by Reform, because that's their strategy on lots of things. I mean, look at Farage with his school days stuff, still yet to apologise, still yet to apologise for the 5 million, still yet to apologise. He always just turns it on the back foot, put them on the back foot, raise it as a grievance, The thing with the 5 million, the line now is from him, which I still don't think he's 100% comfortable with, but he's more comfortable with it than nothing. And he tends to say, that was private information. I was doxxed. Nobody should know about this, which I think is a crazy take, by the way. That's like being like, by the way, I robbed you, or I committed fraud, or I did something wrong, but you shouldn't know about it. I tried to hide it. And the fact that you do know about it means someone stole it from me. So I think it's crazy.
James, just while we're on Farage, I feel like I need to get this off my chest after everything that was happening last week in not Southport, sorry. That was a few years ago. The same Farage riots, though, interestingly, actually. What was happening in the Southport was it early last week. And just there was something that was doing the rounds on social media, right? And it was Nigel Farage's response to what had happened, with the murder of Henry Nowak, which, by the way, appalling, horrendous, absolutely shocking. I mean, huge failure of the police force. Let's just get that out there. Because I feel like that just needs to be said just to start this conversation. But Farage coming out, I know I mentioned earlier, off the back of the family requesting that it didn't get politicised, he then decided to respond to that by requesting that people responded with pure, cold rage. Right? He knows what that means. But let's rewind. Let's rewind to 2021. And this is what's been doing the rounds on social media. Nigel Farage's response to the murder of Sarah Everard, who was murdered by a police officer, right? So directly murdered by a police officer, not murdered by someone else, and the police officer failed to respond to that and was negligent. Not
even murdered in a kind of response to a crime. The police officer was on duty. This police officer raped and murdered her after using his identity to kidnap her while he was off duty. Completely different situation. Even more, I mean, arguably, I'm not going to comment on the policing of the Henry Nowak situation. It needs to be fully investigated, but I would argue it's negligent at best, willfully ignorant at worst. It's just a horrific situation. But the Wayne Couzens murder of Sarah Everard was a deliberate act of murder by somebody and rape, by a monster who had been reported previously for things.
Exactly. So just a reminder. So Nigel Farage on the Henry Nowak situation wanted people to respond with pure, cold rage. Mm-hmm. Okay. 2021, a woman gets murdered, and he said, "We must not allow the tragic murder of a young woman to turn into attacks on men and police." Now, that essentially is just saying to women everywhere, you're not safe, and also stop being hysterical.
Yeah.
Calm down. Like, it's not a big deal. I'm just not sure how. I'll tell you what, I'll ask you, James. What do you think the differences are between those two scenarios and to why Nigel Farage would act differently and ask people to respond differently?
Because one of them's a benefit for him politically and the other isn't. It's just plain and simple. You know, his supporters, his fans, the base that he appeals to, that he often is losing support to people like Restore and Rupert Lowe. He needs to wind those people up about this. He sees the opportunity in it. But with the Sarah Everard situation, another murder of a woman, horrendous as it is, but we mustn't protest. We mustn't go out and cause rage. And indeed, there was also footage doing the rounds of him responding to the, I think it was some of the rape allegations against Trump, or perhaps it was the assassination attempt on Trump. But he was golfing at the time, and an interviewer asked Farage how Trump was taking it. Has he been speaking to Trump, whatever had happened? Again, I can't clarify because I didn't see the full clip. But Farage in that clip says he's quietly angry, and that's a good way to be, because we mustn't respond with rage to anything. The only bad things come when people respond with rage. And you're like, oh, so you're consciously aware of that, and yet are at the same time now calling for rage, because that leads to bad things. It leads to violence in the street. It leads to division. And who profits from division? Nigel Farage and the Reform Party.
And listen, James, right? I am so far gone from this that, like, I don't even want to have the conversation with the people who believe him. But there's just enough plausible deniability in the language that he uses. So that was a pre-recorded message that he sent out after the trial of the Nowak, the pure cold rage. So it was formulated, it was written. They knew what they were saying, and he uses just enough plausible deniability so that he can step back and say, I wasn't inciting any riots. I wasn't inciting any violence. But this is the conversation I won't have with anyone. Like, we all know, we aren't stupid. We know what he was trying to do, right? And anybody who tries to convince me otherwise, they're either ignorant or they're just a bit dumb, right? Because we know what he was doing. And it's so blatantly obvious. And then when you bring out the receipts, like what you just said there about what rage actually means, because in its technical term, cold anger or cold rage means to not actually physically act on it and just to hold it. But that's not how people take it. People don't whip out a dictionary every single time they hear Nigel Farage speak. It's emotion, and he knows exactly how to play on it. And look what happened. The Southport riots, when a lot of things changed in this country. And then again in Southampton just last week, riots, people getting arrested, police officers getting hurt, a police dog got injured. Like, this is what this guy actually wants. And you know what the difference is? The difference is that the Sarah Everard murder was a white dude, I believe. I'm guessing Wayne Couzens was a white dude.
The white police officer,
and the perpetrator of the crime this time round was a Sikh man. And an evil one at that. What he
Wayne
did was
Couzens,
evil.
if you want to go even further, Wayne Couzens was in many far-right forums as well. His politics matched that of Nigel Farage. I'll tell you everything you need to know about those people. But in Farage's address to the nation, I don't know who the fuck this man thinks he is, by the way, with his handful of MPs. But in his address to the nation, he said that the rights and privileges of white people matter less than ethnic minorities now. That's a step further than Enoch Powell's Rivers of Blood speech. And then at the end of that, he said, white lives matter.
Oh.
And there needs to be an end to anti-white prejudice. Craig, it's absolutely fucking diabolical that we're in a situation where we get people like him saying that. We get people like Elon Musk saying that, white farmers in South Africa are victims. Anybody who left South Africa because they were racist and part of the apartheid, that they were victims. And that, neo-Nazis in Germany who are understandably not tolerated in society. I know after the fact they killed 6 million Jews, yet those people are victims as well. This victimhood on the right and of white middle-aged men that they love playing to. I've seen the videos, I'm sure you have. They're all doing this thing where they're now taking a knee for Henry Nowak. That, you know, some of the worst kind of trash human beings you've ever seen in your life are now suddenly bothered about a murder when they haven't spoken about, you know, the gang rape of a Sikh woman weeks ago. They haven't spoken about anything horrific that's happened up till now because they see political gain in this. And the biggest heartbreak of all of it, and it would still be wrong even if the family was supportive of Nigel Farage, of course it would, but I would understand their grief, I'd understand their suffering. The fact that that family is saying, please don't do that. Please don't do this. You know, and here's Farage being absolutely chastised by Starmer in the Commons, rightly so. You know, he's blasting them saying, you know, you shouldn't be doing that. And yet he's continuing to make hay out of it. You know, anti-white prejudice. Give me a break, man. What are you on about? That
James,
doesn't exist.
They've made AI, an AI song has been produced, like some sort of, I don't know if it's a rap or what, around I Can't Breathe.
Oh my God.
And they're making AI videos of the lad. Like
they're mocking the George
awful.
Floyd situation is what they're doing. Yes. You know, they're using it because they love to like dress up like what they see as the left, you know, and talk about George Floyd. When George Floyd's murder by a police officer on camera in front of the world, his racist murder sparked a movement, you know, of Black Lives Matter. Which was just a continuation of the civil rights struggle that's been happening for hundreds of years. But even still, they hate it so much that they see an opportunity to dress it up like that because some poor lad was stabbed walking home at night in Southampton by someone who coincidentally happens to be a Sikh, who nobody, by the way, in the Sikh community supports or liked or engaged with whatsoever because he was a thug. Like, that's all he was. He was just a petty thug.
Listen, James, for anybody listening, right, because there'll be people out there who are generally concerned about how the police may be treating white people different to how they're treating black people or people from different backgrounds, communities, whatever it is, right? Ask yourself, have you been mistreated by the police because of your skin color, right? And I'd be surprised if there was any white people that, and yeah, there'll be people out there who have been mistreated by the police. I'm not going to deny that, whether it be snarky comments or just, you know, whatever. There'll be all sorts of different things. But is it because of your skin color? Second point, right? The number of stop and searches carried out by the police on black people is significantly higher than all other races, ethnicities, and backgrounds, right? Despite, and this is completely out of proportion as to how many crimes are committed by black people. If you want to look at the stats, go and Google them. They are there, right? But the police over the years have been heavily cantered the other way in terms of how they mistreat people. And it's not been against white people. And this White Lives Matter thing, right? I am sick to death of people telling me that my identity is holding me back. That being white is holding me back. That being straight is holding me back. It's not. Every single day is straight white guy day. Yeah. Right. That's why there's a pride. That's why there's a Black Lives Matter. That's why there's LGBT. That's why there's all sorts of different organizations and movements set up to bring in equality, because we have it every single day. That I am not held back by my straightness or my whiteness. What holds me back is the lack of investment into northern communities, right? Yeah. And maybe being working class and not having the same sort of opportunities as what rich folk have. If anything holds me back, it's that. And it's not being straight, and it's not being white. So Nigel Farage, do one, because I'm sick of it.
Yeah. Do you know who holds me back? You know, the idea that black people or anyone from any ethnic minority or gay people or trans people are holding me back. Do you know who holds me back? It's people who buy a house with £1.4 million worth of cash, Nigel. So with all due respect, fucking do one, mate. Stop trying to convince everyone that the problem is everybody else, literally everybody else in the world, except for the actual cause of that problem, which is you and your pals who don't like paying tax. You move to other countries to avoid it. You don't like paying your responsibility in society. You don't like social programs like the NHS. You don't like any operation of state. You think the state's too big. You want everyone to be out on their own. Classic kind of Thatcherite individualist policies. That's fine. Make that argument. But for the love of God, don't have the cowardice to hide behind a scapegoat, because it's so pathetic. And the idea that I, a man who I'm trying to think of things, Craig, that I can't do right now. And I don't think there's anything. I can go and walk around the city centre, right, like tonight in the middle of the night, and nobody will bother me. I can sit on a bus, nobody will bother me, nobody will sexually harass me, nobody will come up to me and threaten me, nobody will make a racist slur at me, nobody will engage with me, right? Because statistically, I'm probably the problem. I'm probably the person who would do those things statistically if you looked at that, because of skin color and because of race and because of ethnicity and gender. So the idea that checking, or bringing that into it and considering gender when it comes to rape, sexual assault, any kind of hate crime, the idea that is somehow in itself an oppression of us is just absolutely ludicrous. And I think we have to meet it like that. If I meet anyone, I'll give you all fair warning right now. If I meet you, and I normally try and engage with people politely and, listen to their point and try and steer them away. If I meet you and you're a white bloke and you start telling me that you're oppressed, I'll just fucking laugh in your face, because it is laughable. It's a joke.
And James, these are the guys who want to scrap the Equalities Act, who want to make decisions about women's bodies for them, right? And that's what we're dealing with. But James, I don't know about you, but I've got a little bit of a nasty taste in my mouth after all that.
Yeah,
should we cleanse
absolutely.
a little bit?
I think we should. I think we need our star of the week before we wrap up, Craig.
Let's bring it on. Star of the week, presented by That's Class. There it is.
Right. Are you going to intro this one for us, Craig?
Yeah. Well, we've already sort of introed it, haven't we? We spoke about question time. For those who weren't aware, there was a by-election special where, they were sort of debating between the candidates for the upcoming Makerfield by-election. Naturally, Robert Kenyon, he was there, sitting there, and he was getting a bit of flack for some, I think the Carol Vorderman situation got mentioned.
Yeah.
And yes, I think that's it. Let's just roll into it. That's the backdrop. That's the setting. Let's roll the VT.
Asked most by the audience about you personally, Rob, was about comments you've made, in particular about women. Now, a number of you put that point. Are any of you? Can I see from those of you who have said yes? The woman with the. Did you ask about that? Yes. Let's hear what you've got to say.
I'd rather have a career politician than a plumber who's a sexist.
It was so quick and so clean. I don't know what the lady's name is.
They've been hunting her down. I hear that the far right and people have been looking for this woman, but congratulations, because you are our star of the week this week. And I think to put it in such a concise way is perfect, Yeah, I would rather have a career politician. Also, what the hell is a career politician if not you, Rob Kenyon, who is a councillor currently and has stood for election before, not won, and is now standing for reform to try and get elected. And if you get elected, you'll be on 85 grand a year. What is that if not a career politician? It's nonsense.
And the attack line from Reform that evening was, vote for me because I'm not a career politician. Andy Burnham is. Now, but you're voting for a party that is led by Nigel Farage, who epitomises. He epitomises.
Never had a job.
Making money from government, from political parties, from donations. This is the man that was in an interview just recently saying that, you don't get, actually it wasn't recently, maybe it was a few years ago, but saying you don't get rich from politics, not unless you're crooked. How perfect is that?
Yeah.
On the backdrop of, millions and millions of pounds entering personal donations to the Nigel Farage current account. And that's it. But no, star of the week this week, just, putting it in there, making it very obvious. Yeah. Sexist plumber, career politician. The guy just seems to think that because he's working class and because he's a plumber, that would make him a good candidate and a good MP. I mean, like I've said, we said it last week, I think, or maybe it was the week before. I'm all for more working class voices in Parliament. But you have to be able to get the basics right. And you know what one of the basics are? Don't be a piece of shit. And he seems to be a real.
Are we asking too much, do we think, Craig, of our politicians? If we set the bar at don't be a piece of shit, do we think we're ruling out a lot of people? Because Rob Kenyon really does strike me as someone who is a piece of shit. Because everything he said, he won't even apologize for it. He won't even, man up and take responsibility for it. Yeah, he wants to hide behind the fact that, every policy on that debate that he got asked about, right? He'd be like, well, that's for the Home Secretary to deal with. I would just be the MP for Makerfield. What are you wanting to do, lad? Are you wanting the job or not? Like, what on earth are you on about? Like, the best MPs instantly get into Parliament and start lobbying for their community, even if they're just backbenchers, right? But this idea that, he's of the Lee Anderson school of real working men, who themselves are just absolute chances, man. And why was he dressed as well? Why was he dressed like somebody on the committee at the social club? Did you notice that? Like, he looked exactly like them old boys that you see who are like, I've been on the club committee now for 32 years. He was exactly just like a cosplay of an idea of a Britain that existed 30 years ago.
Oh, God, you're not wrong, James. But no, I think that's a good place to leave it. What I do need to say is there may be a change up in the schedule coming up this week because I am jet setting off to Chicago.
Windy City.
So we'll figure it out. We'll figure out the timings. It'll be on the social media. If you've joined in tonight, if you're on Instagram, whatever it is, get across to our YouTube. We are beginning to take off, just like I'm going to take off tomorrow. 100 subscribers is brilliant. So thank you, everybody.
Listen, if I was US Customs and I heard you made that joke, that would be enough for me to say you're not coming in, pal. I'm sorry. And I think hopefully, I hope everything goes smoothly. You have to let us know. But it would be great to hear from your trip to the US, which I'm sure we'll be able to hear some more about in due course. But have a safe journey. I speak for all of the That's Class community when I say I hope you have a lovely, safe flight, Craig.
Thank you very much, James. But yeah, we'll let everybody know on the old socials when we're going to be streaming because it'll be potentially a bit of a change. I think actually our usual spot, I will be on a flight home. So we'll figure something out. We'll get something up. Maybe even a pre-record, and we'll chuck it up there. We'll think of something. We'll think of something because we need to continue this consistency. We're 15 episodes in, I think now, and we are having fun. So yeah. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you, everyone on Spotify, Instagram, YouTube, all across the globe. That has been another episode of That's Class. I've been Craig.
And I've been James.
And we've been That's Class. We'll get it one week. See you later, everyone.